Hello, hello, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hey, and if you're coming from the TikTok streets, what's up, gang? I am so excited that you're here. I am going to do an extended version, the full story of my near-death experience that I had at 17, getting into a car crash because there was far too much for me to share in the TikTok streets. So we are going to get into the entire full tea in this YouTube video. Thank you for following. Please subscribe and share with a friend. Now, before I got into this car accident at 17 years old, it has been over 20 years since this happened, and I never told the story because, frankly, I was afraid of being called a lot of things. But we're here, and I feel like because I'm a person that is so big on living in authenticity, keep diving deep. If you're still hiding parts of yourself, if there are still parts of yourself in shadow, we keep going. We keep doing that work, right? I'm doing the work even though I'm coaching too. So it felt very important for me to share this story because it is quite a foundational part of who I am and what I do and my spiritual journey. At 17, I was the perfect kid in terms of I never drank, I never smoked, I didn't go to parties in high school. I was on the beach collecting rocks with my fellow good girlfriends. I didn't have a boyfriend, I wasn't allowed to. And I was in church 2 days a week. And actually, when this car accident happened, I was with my friends on the way to youth group. God does things in funny ways. We were on the way to youth group. I was in the front passenger seat. There was one girl behind the driver, and we were driving through a green light at, I would say, about 30, 40 miles an hour. Out of nowhere, a stolen car, it turns out, with a driver that was high, and I'll tell you how we found that out later, runs a red light at about 50 miles an hour. We're going this way. This is my door. The guy is coming from this way. Boom, slams into my door. We spin, and he keeps moving on. Now, you're probably asking yourself, you got in a car accident and your door got hit at 50 miles an hour? Yes. And I'm still sitting here. And that's why we're talking about this story. I distinctly remember a couple things that stick out, which are still amazing to me to this day. First is that time slowed down when the car was going to hit me. It wasn't like other car accidents where you kind of see things in slow motion coming of like, oh, I'm about to get hit. Because I've been in multiple car accidents and I've had that feeling. This was an actual slowdown of time such that I could actually look him in the eyes. And shout out to my friend Stephanie, who was the driver who helped me recollect a lot of these memories. And we traded kind of stories and voice notes and helped piece the thing together. I actually told the people in the car after the accident many days later that time slowed down. I was able to look in his eyes and I could tell he was high. That's interesting because I had never gotten high. I was 17 and again in church 2 days a week. I didn't know what high people look like. But in that moment, time was slow enough that I could zoom in on him and see the mental state that he was in. Here's where it gets really freaky. And every time I tell this, it gives me chills, so forgive me. But when the car stopped spinning, because we spun out not a full 360, but we were in the middle of an intersection, so we slid and spun. We happened to be in front of a fire station where EMTs were pulling out for a different call. So we literally got hit right in front of where an EMT was pulling out. So within, I want to say, a few minutes, I heard sirens, and then all of a sudden, nothing. And when I mean nothing, I don't mean like quiet or dark. I mean the actual absence of everything. And as soon as I saw that absence of everything and that absolute darkness, I heard my own voice say, "Oh my God, I'm dead." And that was the literal tone of voice. It wasn't fear, anger, frustration, pain, none of that. It was like a smooth transition and an immediate realization of like, oh, okay, so I'm no longer over there, I'm over here. There's nothing over here. I can't see anyone, anything, nothing exists except for the sound of my voice and or thought, which was my consciousness. But I knew very certainly that I was dead. Here's how I know the difference between going to the void and simply closing my eyes. Because after what felt like a couple minutes, I actually don't know how long it was, after a couple minutes of being in the void, I then remember coming back into my body with my eyes closed, and the blacks changed. So even though it was still dark because I had my eyes closed, I immediately knew, oh, wait, I'm back. And my next thought after, oh, I'm not dead anymore, is my glasses must have broken in my eyes because as you can see, I wear glasses and the car literally hit my door. the entire window smashed and fell in. So I was pretty certain, like, there is no way my glasses are not broken also. They must be broken in my eyes. So I could feel the shift very distinctly from living and being hit by the car, immediately being snapped out of my body and going into the dark void and coming back into my body with my eyes closed. I could hear sounds, even though it was dark with my eyes closed, I could still see shadows of things. Like, you know, when you close your eyes, but you can still kind of see light kind of dancing in and out in front of your eyes. So I could tell the difference between, oh, it's just dark because I have my eyes closed, and there is nothing. Like, I didn't have a body in the void. I did not have anything. There was nothing. Think of the darkest, deepest, blackest space, and that's where I was. The absence of stars, light, anything, anything at all. And I knew that I was no longer in a physical vessel. And when I came back to that physical vessel, my mind went back online. And again, like I said, I started reasoning like, oh, my glasses must be broken. I opened my eyes, shocked that my glasses were in fact not broken, but also that I seemed to be okay, which made no sense because I'm looking around like, okay, this is bad. Before I can even really process that, EMTs are snatching my door open. Mind you, I said this happened in front of a fire station and they were already leaving for another call. So it only took them, I want to say, from where we were distance to the firehouse, probably 7 minutes to get to us. So I couldn't have been in the void very long. I don't know. That's the part that neither myself nor the driver can really put together because time does a thing when you get in a car accident. So it could have been 7 minutes, it could have been 15 minutes. From our memory, there was a truck going out. I would imagine if there was a truck going out already, they had to figure that out because those people still need their services. So it's possible that that wasn't the same truck. I have no way of verifying that. Either way, EMTs snatch my door open, which is completely crushed. And I start hearing shouting, and they're like, don't move, don't move, don't move. All of a sudden, an EMT reaches into the car and puts a neck brace on me. And they lift me up out of the car and put me on a stretcher. Here's where it gets quantum and freaky. I have a very vivid memory of that. My friend and I were in the same ambulance. I was on the gurney. There's not multiple gurneys in an ambulance. And we were, when I say in an ambulance, like not just rolling to the hospital, like with the sirens on, blowing red lights. I know that. I also stayed on that stretcher for an hour and a half when I got to the hospital. So it's not like there isn't evidence that I was on the stretcher. When my mom walked in, she nearly fainted because I was on a stretcher in a neck brace. What's crazy though is myself, the driver, and my mother all have memories of me walking away from that car accident and calling my mom and saying, Mom, and I remember the conversation verbatim to this day. Mom, I got in a car accident, but I'm fine. Meet me at St. Anthony's Hospital, which is in St. Petersburg, Florida. My mom met me at that hospital, but there's no way I could have called her. But all three of us remember me walking away and calling her. Now, let's use logic. If I had to be put in a neck brace and snatch out of the car, they're not going to put you in a neck brace, snatch you out of the car, and then be like, oh, make a phone call if you want. And then when you get back, we'll put you on the stretcher in the ambulance. There is no way I could have walked away. And also, I wouldn't have said I got in a car accident, but I'm fine if I was in a neck brace on a gurney. That's not fine. Okay, that's the definition of not fine. But my mom met me at that hospital and I was laying on the gurney. That was so excruciating, by the way. I don't know if you've ever been on it, but it's like a hard board of plastic. And I was in a neck brace, just staring at the ceiling for an hour and a half in the ER, waiting for somebody to come. And my mom walks in the room and, of course, freaks out because she sees me in that state. But I remember thinking, how are you here? It gets crazier. We wait to get processed. They put me on I guess, a gurney. Now that we're in the hospital, I'm not sure of the right terminology, but to roll me to get MRIs. Somehow, in the next room is my grandfather, who at this point had dementia fully and had just had a heart attack. As we roll by his room, because it was one of those where the doors open and there's like a curtain, but his was pulled, he literally sat up in his bed and went, and looked me right in the eyes. Now, mind you, I said, my grandfather had severe dementia. He didn't remember anybody. My dad is, well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but my dad was his favorite kid. He didn't remember my dad. He didn't remember us. I lived with my grandparents when I was younger for the first few years that we moved to America. He did not remember any of us. And he sat up like he knew exactly who I was. And the look on his face was like he had seen a ghost. There's actually no other way to describe it than that. It was like shock and awe. And mind you, I said he just had a heart attack. So it's not like you were in the best health to be jumping up out of the bed. But as soon as he saw me and we locked eyes, and I'll never forget that moment of locking eyes with my grandfather because it feels like something was transferred in that moment. I actually did not know till this year that the timing of it, he died a week and a half after that car accident. It all was so close together that I couldn't piece the timeline together. But when I asked my mother, she was like, you know, that was a week before he died. So he was on his way out. I had been out and come back. And I think something when we saw each other, he was like, oh my God, girl, I'm about to go over there and don't you stay. Like he looked at me like, this is not good. They rolled me to take MRIs and they deduced you just have a chest contusion, which is just like a bruise on your sternum. And they let me out of the hospital. I went back to school the next day. I went back to work 2 days later, and we all carried on like nothing happened. But the thing is, a lot of things happened. And there was such a severe change when I came back that my mother, my Jamaican mother, God bless her, put me in therapy because I started to have mental breakdowns and so many things were different. She said my entire personality changed for a period of time and it slowly kind of got back to what it was, but she still noticed a difference. I literally came back from that car accident. Mind you, I said this is the second semester of my senior year. I had been on my service club for I think 3 years. I had been a dancer for like 4 years. When I came back from that car accident, within 2 weeks, I quit. Now, to give you context, the second semester of your senior year on the dance team is when all of the biggest competitions are. You get all your senior badges, you get your varsity letters, there's a lot of recognition for a person that does a dance team for all 4 years and makes it to their senior year. And I forfeited all of that. And I was very involved in high school. Like I was the girl with the pom-poms and the this and the that everywhere. Quit like that. My service club, I worked my way up to being president my senior year, and again, just didn't care about it when I came back. What's weird is there was a girl that was my best friend before the accident, and no lie, that last semester after the accident, it was like her and I were only ever acquaintances. It was so weird. She had a whole new group of friends. They all were best friends, and I remember being like, how are these your friends? You and I were best friends. I used to go over to your house all the time and meet your mom and your brother and all this. And it was like a distant, hey girl. It made no sense. But also, a girl who I was in a completely different program than in high school, we were best friends. And to this day, I cannot explain where me and this girl met. And we were such best friends leaving high school that she knows some of my college friends. She used to come on campus visit all the time. But we did not hang out because if you know anything about this program, she was in the IB program in high school and I wasn't, which means we had completely separate classes in completely separate parts of the campus. We knew a couple people in common that I went to middle school with, but again, like when would I socialize with you because I was never in class with you? You guys were on two different sides of life. But somehow she was now my best friend and was for like a decade or more after that. But it always kind of bothered me because I'm like, how did this start? Like, how are you and I like sisters? Like, me and her little sister are still in contact to this day, and her and I are no longer friends, but like, I could not tell you the origin of that friendship. And ladies, you know us. If you have a best friend, you know exactly how you and your best friend became best friends. That's not a secret. That's not like a mystery. You know your best friends, right? So there were things that were slightly different in my timeline or things that were different in the version of me that came back of I even started dressing different. Most of my friends in college don't realize I dressed completely different in high school. By the time I got to college, I was wearing like t-shirts, jeans, and reef sandals, which is insane because I was literally the person shopping at Express off of like I had two jobs in high school because I love fashion. I would go to Express. I was wearing like 5-inch wedge heels to school. Like I was really into fashion and jewelry. But when I came back, I just did not care at all. And like I now, being 40 years old, think that your soul fragments are all the same across timelines. But I think I came back with different levels of interest in the things I was interested in, which is a weird experience to have, right? Like to be so passionate about a thing and then just not care, right? I went to back to fashion many, many years later after college, but it didn't have the same flavor I had before in high school. My style changed completely. And it's still wild to look back at it because people would tell you that you're nuts if you're like, oh, I haven't been the same since, because I am still me, but a little different, a little different. And my life felt a little different. Within a year of that car accident, I started getting horrible migraines. Now, before I go to the migraines, let me back up. Remember how I told you my mom sent me to therapy? Okay. I went to the therapist and they told me I was bipolar. And as a high school student, I was like, I've never had mental health issues. I mean, I was a melancholy, sad teenager and I listened to a lot of Korn and Green Day and I was like angry or whatever, but what teenage girl wasn't? I had never had any mental health issues really. But you're now telling me I'm bipolar and want me to go on medication. I was like, something in me feels like that's really stupid. Because even this therapist was like, you seem very well put together, but we feel strongly about this diagnosis. Girl, what? So I told my mom, I don't think this lady knows what she's talking about. Let me see if there's somebody else. And when I entered college, I had forgotten about the idea, but when I entered college, I ended up going back because I started getting migraines every day. I was very sensitive to light and sound and temperature, and I had never been that way before. I was a pretty roll with the punches, rough and tumble. I was a tomboy before high school. Like, my environment didn't really have that big of an impact on me. But after this accident and ever since, I am so sensitive to so many things. I was actually diagnosed with fibromyalgia many years later, but I still find it fascinating that none of that stuff started happening until after the accident. Now, here's what's even more interesting is not only did my friends change, but I had a long distance, like fake boo. He and I were best friends and like, we met on the AIM chat rooms and then we met up in real life and became BFFs. And he lived on the other coast of Florida. And do you know, we were thick as thieves and talked on the phone every single day. When I came back from that accident, he disappeared. I tried calling him, he wouldn't pick up. I tried writing him, I didn't hear anything back. I did not hear from that kid for a year and a half because I randomly like found him on Facebook and sent him a message and was like, "What the hell happened to you?" Like I was heartbroken actually because I really like fell for this kid. And he was like, "You want to know the weirdest thing? I have sent you over 20 letters and they all were returned to my house." So we can't explain that. And he actually was getting married within a couple months of me sending that message, so we don't talk anymore. But he was like, "I sent you so many letters." And one day they all came back in a bundle together. That's what was weird. He didn't get them bouncing back one after the other, like, oh, I tried to send you mail and it came back, and I tried something else and came back. No, he said he got a bushel of mail, return sender of every letter he had tried to write me. And it was just sent back to his house. Couldn't tell you. I guess whatever version he was writing no longer, I couldn't tell you. Like, was he writing the old version of me and she didn't live there or wasn't registered to that address anymore and so they all got sent back? Couldn't tell you. These are the things that let me know like I'm not crazy and something in my timeline shifted. Here is where it gets interesting though, because I came back with some extra things, or maybe it activated some things that were already there, however you want to look at it. But my senior year of college, I had my first download. And I didn't know what those were called back then, so I just thought I was kooky, but I went with the direction I was given. I was sitting in one of my last human development courses. I have a degree in human development and psychology, and I was sitting in one of my last courses with my notebook. I had my school notebook and I had my journal. And I remember being in the back of class. And what's interesting is like right before I graduated, my passion for fashion like reignited out of nowhere. And I just had this mental snap of like, I don't want to go be a counselor. I want to do fashion. I had this whole breakdown to my mom like winter before I graduated college. And I was like, I want to do fashion. I don't want to be a psychologist. I want to go and do fashion shows and style and whatever. But I had zero experience. My father was a fashion designer at one point in his life, but the most I did was play in his workroom and ruin his fabrics. Um, but I had never had any formal training. And I was sitting in the back of that class. And all of a sudden, I started getting information. And I remember it felt like a wave hitting the back of my head. And I just immediately knew I should start writing. Do you know what that was? It was a full 4-page template on how to produce a fashion show. I actually still have that journal to this day because I'm so fascinated by it that literally everything you can think of like securing the venue, the models, DJ, lighting, sound, like the setup for the stage, PR, marketing, how to make like everything came in like a 5-page manual that was given to me by my spirit guides. I'm not going to bother to tell you that after I graduated, I produced about 25 fashion shows. And to this day, many people actually that were in the industry back then thought I went to fashion school. I did those 25 shows before I went back to school because I actually got my master's in business. I got an MBA, but it's from Lim College, which is the only fashion school in the country that also has an MBA program. So it was a hybrid of a classic MBA and fashion business. But I did the shows before I was ever formally taught anything in school. I went back to business school just because I wanted to deepen my knowledge because I had been in business for 5 years. I ran a company for 5 years, and no one taught me how to do that. That was the first time I had ever gotten information from the divine that was like complete. And I thought I was nuts for years until I found out that Beethoven, or no, Mozart got music that way. He was very ill and he would go into like near death hallucinations and come back with entire pieces of music. The person that invented the periodic table had an NDE and they got the entire chart. So this has happened to a lot of people. There's a story of a doctor floating around the internet who had an NDE and he came back as like a concert pianist. He had never played music his entire life. And when he came back from the NDE, he was able to play like the most complex classical music and quit being a doctor that he had been for 30 years to become a concert pianist. So it's not rare to come back with things, but that was such a tangible thing to come back with. And mind you, I'm like 21 running around St. Petersburg convincing designers and boutiques that I'm a producer and you should sign this contract and pay me to do a fashion show because I'm going to help you increase your sales. And I had never done it. It worked. I made these people a lot of money. I made money for myself and I made them a lot of money and I got models a lot of exposure, et cetera, et cetera. But there was no formal training that was all a download. And from there, I realized, okay, life is going to get interesting if I'm just going to get extra data. This seems fun. Let's take this show on the road. So I moved to New York. I went to LA. LA is in New York City. And more gifts started coming online. Now, let me back up and say this. I'm born into a very spiritual family of mystics and seers and astral projectors and getting visions and telepathy and mediums and the whole 9 yards. And I always said my entire life, I was like, you guys got all the cool stuff and I got nothing. I got nothing. How did I end up with a big nothing, right? I guess I didn't. But what's interesting is I didn't know I had some of the clairs until looking back, because here are some peculiar things about me as a kid. First of all, I was a gate kid. So when I moved to America, they immediately put me in gifted. Funnily, my mom didn't tell me my IQ because she thought it would make me act better than the other kids. Maybe it would have, I don't know. But we also thought it was interesting that I won every single, and I mean every single because there were one each a year. Between second and fifth grade, I won every single math and spelling bee in my elementary school. Kids started to hate me and be like, she shouldn't even be allowed to enter. And I cannot tell you how I knew the answers. I cannot tell you how I knew all the words. And here's the thing. I could say, okay, I started school in Jamaica and our schools are more advanced. Maybe, but like, I don't know every word that exists. Jamaican schools are good, but they don't give you the vocabulary of every word in the world. So, yeah, I was advanced, but not that advanced. If I moved here at 6, then by 10 and 11, I shouldn't still be winning everything. Like that wasn't just a Jamaican schooling thing. It was just I would get the answers to stuff on the spot. And I am notoriously bad at math, unless it comes to counting money. So the fact that I was winning math bees is still wild to me. But I think looking back, my top was open. The only other peculiar thing we noticed in me as a kid is that I could complete the crossword in the newspaper. So like the adult crossword, I could complete it every single day without knowing the words. But if you looked at the back at the very end, and I wouldn't cheat, but all the words would be correct. And my mother would be like, how do you know all those words? This is a very complex crossword. You have a big vocabulary. And I was like, I don't know some of these words, but when I said the clue to myself, the word just came to my mind. So that is clair sentience, claircognizance. Those lines are very thin. I get feelings and I get actual information. So both, but like tangible pieces of information. And after the accident in the years following, like I said, the clairaudience came online and I started getting downloads and I started hearing people talking to me and not in a mental health crisis way, in a, hey, we're your spirit guides. Hey, it's your grandmother. Hey, it's an angel coming through to give you a message for people. I started being able to see very deeply into people. This actually started in college where I would be having surface level conversations with people and be like, hmm, you're grieving something. There's something that's like making you very sad that's happened and you're not touching on it. And they would bust out crying. I'm still this way to this day. Almost every single one of my clients cry, and I don't mean to make them cry, but I just see something very deep within you and I will say it and bring it to the surface and people will spontaneously cry. And that's when I started to be like, oh, okay, got the download senior year. As I moved to New York City, people don't realize this. New York City is a very spiritual place. If you're looking for the spiritual healers, the Reiki people, all the cosmic folks, they're in New York. And people don't say that, but like go to Brooklyn, go to Harlem, right? Like they are here. Even if you go to like Lower East Side, Lower Manhattan, they have all the little crystal shops over there, like it's going down, right? And I was able to fully explore. And I think because I was surrounded by people who were spiritually open-minded, I think it allowed the gifts that had been trying to come through since the accident to really fully flourish. Because freaky things to me happened like meditating with a crystal one day and my grandmother came on through. Clearly, with like information that only my grandmother could know. Freaked me out. I started hearing from the We Collective. So I could hear my spirit guides. They're the ones that I believe gave me the download for the fashion show. But then I started getting direct messages from a collective group. And I started doing automatic writing because when it would come through, it's going to sound really freaky, but when it happens, my head kind of starts to do a thing and I can tell, like, okay, they're coming. And so I get a pen out and I would just write these things down. And when I would read them back, they were so profound that I was like, there's no way I wrote that. Number one, I'm smart, but I can't give myself that level of credit. And everything was referred to in the plural. But like we, as in people who don't live here on earth and have a higher perspective, I'm going to start sharing some of those if I can get my my bravery up because it really is like profound spiritual information that I was given, but like it just started coming automatically. I actually discovered 6 months ago that one of those writings had concepts in it from the book Journey of Souls, which I just read in the last couple of months, except that writing is from 2017. So somehow I knew all of the concepts in the book 7 years before I ever read the book and like wrote it in one of these channeling sessions. And I remember being guided to open my Evernote and open that note. And when I looked at it, I was like, wait, I haven't been taking notes as I've been reading this book. When did I take notes reading this book? And I looked at the timestamp and I was like, what? This says 2017. Like, how is that possible? But okay, this is just another one of the things. So I guess you could say I came back with clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance, and the ability to channel. Now, here's where it also gets interesting for me is like now my spirit guides and I kind of have a thing and we talk all the time and they put me up on game. For example, I live in a digital building where you don't need keys to go in and out of your doors, so it's just your phone. So I never ever check my mail. And I literally a month ago heard them like press upon me, like, go check your mail. And I almost was annoyed because I'm like, now I'm gonna have to go out of my way and go to the thing, and it's like in a whole different route than where I was going. And they were like, I don't care, go check your mail. I went and checked the mail, and there was a random check in there from some settlement I do not recall ever signing up for. Like they literally can see things that I can't see or tell me to leave places. And then after I leave, I find out something popped off. Like the amount of times that I have been with people who were smoking cannabis in New York City before it was legalized, and I was like, we have to leave right now. And people who are in my close circle know to believe me when I say stuff like that. And we would literally like walk around the corner and there was police many times, like many, 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 many times. I was like, guys, we got to go right now. Cops right around the corner. Like so it's now something that's normalized to me, but it took me many, many years after this accident to accept that this is just what it is now. And I use my intuitive gifts with my clients, but I've never come on the internet and said like, oh, I had an oracle switch and now I can see things and like astral travel in my dreams, which I do quite often. And even that is freaky because I have been to places in my dreams before I went to them in real life and didn't realize it until I actually got to the place and was like, okay, I've actually been here and like in granular detail remember it. So I am okay with it now, but this is yet another step in my evolution of this is the stuff I've always wanted to talk about. But unfortunately, because there were so many spiritual grifters online between COVID and now, it just felt like everyone is selling snake oil, and I don't want to be a part of that. You'll notice that my title is actually an alchemist because what I do is coach around transformation and change. I don't call myself the oracle. I don't name myself by the spiritual gifts that I have. I don't call myself a psychic or a medium or any of those things because to me it is ancestral. It is a gift. It is part of my purpose. I'm actually a Scorpio stellium. I have 6 Scorpio placements. So, like, and I'm a projector in human design. However, you want to look at it, I was put here to go into the void, into the shadow world, into the underworld, into the shadows of our psyche, and help people transform and create change. That's what I'm here to do. The spiritual gifts just help me do that. So I never wanted to come online and be like, hey, you guys, guess what I have? But I do think that authenticity is key. And I think that there are people I haven't reached because I haven't told this story. And so that was my impetus behind sharing. And also, coaches have to do their own work. And I still had a lingering, little nasty fear of rejection, of people coming on and saying all kinds of things of like, how did you go to church, but you believe in quantum immortality and all of this crap? I am now equipped to answer those questions to the best of my ability and not feel attacked. And so it took me some time, but the response on social media has been so overwhelmingly validating. The stories that I have heard in my DMs, in my comments, of people that are like, you're not crazy, this happened to me. Not only are you not crazy, this happened to me 3 times, 6 times, 4 times, right? There is actually, this is the wildest thing. There is actually somebody who messaged me from TikTok and said, I am so blown right now because I had an NDE and died in the hospital, and I saw you or someone identical to you before I came back. I can't make this shit up. But you know what I love is it's possible. It's possible. I don't know him in this timeline. Maybe I know him in another. That's highly possible. I don't want to doubt the brother's story. And it's so important for us to validate each other because this is not mainstream conversation that's going on. And I was saddened to see how many people felt like they were just crazy, or they've been told they're nuts their whole life, or you were told also that you have mental health illnesses and you don't. You just experienced something that is deeply spiritual. But the truth is, you were a soul before you ever were a body. And so sometimes that little soul can get knocked out and come back in. Because what I believe happened is that the people who have NDEs in which they actually go through the white light and go to the other side and see heaven and come back, I think that was part of an experience they were supposed to have. Because when you go that far, you get a choice. People don't realize that. Like anybody who has had an NDE and gone all the way to the other side, you actually get to choose if you want to come back. I think I only went to the void because my spirit guides were like, don't let her choose. She gonna stay. I love it here because her life has not been easy and she's been trying very hard. So if we let her come all the way over here, she's not going to go back. So knock her out, but she's not done yet. She has to go back. And we can't show her too much because she may not complete what it is we have for her to complete. So if this story resonates, please drop your stories in the comments. Please let me know if this has happened to you. Please let me know if you've heard about this. I'm actually also going to discuss some shows that deal with these topics. I've heard the OA is amazing, so I'm going to start watching that. If you have, feel free to spoil it, honey. Drop down in the comments. Let me know your favorite part. If you haven't watched Dark Matter, that is amazing. I'm going to do a longer video around that because I think that talks about a lot of concepts in a very cool way. There's also a movie called Parallel that is phenomenal that I'm going to review as well. So I'm going to build us a little space here, a little safe space, a little community. I'm actually setting up a Patreon. It's already set up, but I'm going to load stuff in there for members so that we can talk about all the things freely. And also, I'll be doing a lot more like guided meditations in there, audio meditations, EFT, like somatic work, because that's actually the stuff I do with my clients. And I really feel called to now share that with the public and actually share the practical things that I channel my gifts into to help people. So that is going to be exciting. I'm excited for this new chapter. I'm excited for you to join me on this journey. So, with all of that being said, I love you dearly. Stick around for the next video. It's coming soon. And as always, love you.